Alright guys, welcome back to On the Ranch. It's been a while since we made a video, but we're having a lot of good feedback and wondering why we're not doing it as much anymore. So we're going to try to get back into it. And coming into the fall, we decided how better to get back into it than give you a series on our food plots. So we're going to call this little series Our Thoughts from Our Plots, and we're going to run through just about everything for food plotting. We're going to stay away from this is what we plant this now, just to avoid that, because a lot of that has to do with regionality, weather, stuff like that. And there's a million videos of that stuff out there. So we're going to try to talk more about architecture and accessing your stands and how to hunt your fields properly, um, really, and just how to go from a stand of woods straight into a functioning huntable food plot. So I guess this week we're going to start with making your plot. So this is going to be when you come into the woods, you're looking at an aerial map and you're going to say, I'm going to put a food plot here. Well, then you get into how big, what shape, and that's kind of what we're going to go through today. So um, you guys want to kick us off here?
One of the first things that I like to look at when I'm getting ready to make a food plot is the wind direction and where I'm going to put my stand. That it it totally makes the shape of the plot, length of the plot. Uh, it determines how I'm going to make the shape square, rectangle, um, stuff like that.
One
See,
thing I re- oh,
yeah, go ahead.
One thing I really try to look at is I try to figure out, okay, well, where are my main core bedding areas, and where does it hold the deer there? That's the thicker stuff, the areas like that, and try to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to bring them into a spot where I can shoot them, where I don't have to hunt in their bedroom, but I can hunt, around it or close to it, where they have easy access or a nice travel corridor to get to that. So that's one thing I really take into consideration.
I think you're right too, because the closer your food is to your bedding, the smaller the home range theoretically should be for these deer. So, and you brought up a good point too about the shape. You're from northern Missouri where it's a lot of ag, and you're looking at fields that are already there, and so yours more rectangle squares and stuff like that. Whereas like I'm from out east in the mountains where you're just kind of doing your own thing in the woods, and we really stayed away from the rectangles and squares and stuff like that. We'd like to do weird stuff like S's and U's and stuff like that, and that really gave the deer uh, ways to get into the field and feel comfortable while you're also there. So it's
One thing you brought up too that I really like is, well, and we'll discuss this a little bit later, is accessibility. But with the different shapes, you have a little bit easier routes to get into food plots. If they're just a circle or they're just a big square, sometimes that makes it tough to hunt the edges of fields because everything can see you as soon as you're coming in. Whereas if it's S-shaped or horseshoed or kind of winds around a little bit, you have an area that they can't quite see you, or if you have structure like when I pushed a food plot, I left all the trees that were falling, a lot of them up against the tree line, so it kind of prevents them from seeing as easy into that field or seeing you get into your stand. So
yeah, this field we're in today is actually one of the better shapes that I like to use because it gives a lot of corners, a lot of pinch points. It makes the deer come in. We're sitting in a big U right now,
mm-hmm.
so we've got clover behind us. We're gonna have turnips and wheat on the other side, um, and it makes the deer come around this big island. We'll throw up an aerial picture of this field and show you that it's got a big jutting U in it, and so it makes that deer comfortable when it comes into the field. One of the big things that everybody gets caught up on too is size, um, and there's the argument of single large or several small. Whether you want to go with a bunch of little plots. Kill plots are really popular these days. Poor man plots, things like that are super small, whether it be a quarter acre up to an acre. And then there's some guys like
Mm-hmm.
the guys up north.
Like ours, I'm mostly a gun hunter, so I try to keep my plots 150 yards across from my stand. They can be longer, but I want them to funnel through that my kill zone is as I So I don't want to shoot over 150 yards. So I don't want my plot to be 300 yards long. I want it to be 150 or less. It could be longer, but they have to cross in front of you at some point in a plot like that. So.
Well, that's a really good point too, and something you said that really stands out. What helps is if you know, okay, I'm gonna mainly gun hunt this plot, or I'm gonna bow hunt. Or I mean, you can do both, and there's no issue with that. But I know when I do, like my wife and I, we bow hunt a lot. We don't really gun hunt much. So whenever I'm making food plots, I'm trying to think, okay, well, how can I shape this so that I'm gonna have the best chance at getting in bow range, or set up in bow range, or if I can move the stand to this spot, So that's something that's a really good point to consider. I'm always thinking, okay, well, how can I get them 40 yards or closer? And if you're gun hunting, you're trying to get a little bit. I know here at the ranch here, we still try to keep our shots around 100, 150 yards. So, yeah, we have a few giant food, big food plots that, it's 300, 400 acre, 400 yards across. That's a long shot, but a lot of our food plots are even smaller, so that it just keeps them within that 100 to 150 yard range. So,
Yeah, yeah, those are good points. A lot of that deals with your shape too. If you're rifle hunting, why not have a rectangle?
yep.
Whether bow hunters, that's the way I think too. You might as well get them closer, more corners, things like that. But the big takeaway is, and I think the optimum situation is going to be have some variety. Like what we have here is perfect. We got some big 10-acre fields that we do beans and crops and things like that in, and then we have these smaller fields that we'll do clovers and things like that. But it gives a good variety. The deer can feel comfortable in their small plot while also having the biomass of the big plot.
So let us know. I know we covered a couple shapes and different things like that, but let us know in the comments below what shapes you guys like for food plots, or kind of some tips and tricks that you guys like. We'd love to hear them. We're always looking for new ideas and kind of better ways to become better hunters and
Yeah, and that
enthusiasts.
yeah, that's important. And a lot of guys these days are actually getting to plots inside of plots.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you have a big 10-acre bean field, which is great for gun hunting, but if you wanted to bow hunt it as well, they might pick a corner where your deer are coming out into the field and do something completely different. Maybe do something like a turnip or something like a later season food. And that gives them, once they're done with the big field or once harvest has happened, especially, they still have food there that they're going to use.
Yeah,
So it's,
that's a really good point, because I was running into the issue when I'd plant, one thing, if I had smaller kill plots, well, they ate everything by September, early
yeah.
October, and then was like, well, now where do I hunt? They were coming to this food plot, but now it's scalped. So then I started trying to get bigger and bigger. Well, sometimes it's better to just rotate and have different mixes or different sections of your food plot. That way it funnels them at different times of the year. So.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're watching your food plots, a lot of your deer, they'll come out on the edges. Those are usually your popular spots because they feel more comfortable, they can get away quicker, things like that. But if you're leaving a lot of edge on your fields with these weird shapes, really your deer are more comfortable in your field altogether rather than just hitting, having a 5-acre field and you're wondering why all your deer come into one side of it. So it kind of spreads them out. It's a little easier on the crop as well when you do it like that. So, but
As I say, normally, like on our big 10, 15 acre food plots, in front of our stand, we will put turnips so that we have an after frost
yeah,
food
Which
source for
for
them.
you, it's a lot of corn and soybeans
Yeah.
yeah,
before that earlier in the year, so that makes
yeah.
sense. That's cool.
Yes. Sometimes it's about size, sometimes it's about shape. I mean,
Yep.
it all comes down to really it all comes down to your property and how your property sets up. I think the biggest takeaway is don't get caught up in, oh, I need to put a food plot in. Get caught up in, oh, where should I put it? What should I do? What shapes and sizes? Because once it's there, it's there. Once you clear out all the trees and stuff, there's no taking it back.
Yep.
That's the
The other
that's
thing we didn't mention too that I'd like to bring up is also look. I know we talked a little bit about bedding, but I also like to look at where I have water,
yeah,
or where I have water. I mean, just the more things that you can put at least closer to them, where they can stay there and stay in that smaller range, I think only increases your odds.
yeah,
So one of the food plots that I actually just put in, I tried to put along a creek bottom. I was a little limited on topography just because it got so steep so quick, so I had to make it, a certain shape because of the topography, which is also something you need to look at beforehand. But
yeah.
if you can get something like that where it works out pretty well, I feel like it's just one of those things to add to it. But
Absolutely, absolutely. You got anything you want to add to that?
I think we covered about everything I can think of.
As far as size and shape, I guess next time we'll talk about, what do you guys want to talk about next time?
So we kind of went over clearing shapes and stuff like that this time, and we'll kind of slowly kind of work our way once you have that location, once you have it cleared, and we'll kind of go from there. And if you guys want to see anything or you want to hear about anything that, kind of some tips or tricks or questions that you have for us, hey, feel free to comment on them, and we'd love to include them possibly in a series. So.
But yeah, thank you guys for following along. It's crazy to see that we get it all the time. It's like, where the videos go? How come we're not doing videos anymore? And I never would have dreamed all that when that started, but it's cool. So we thank you guys for tagging along with us, for bearing with us at least. You get to see our ugly mugs all the time, and hopefully here in the future we'll have some more for you.
And don't forget to subscribe.